Hey. Wow. Well, it's so great to be here. I'm so glad to be with so many patriots. And yes, this is a nonpartisan issue. So I definitely encourage you to go and check out our website. If you can bear to type the word Democrats, you can do it. um, you know, it seems to be it's kind of an edgy issue to talk about United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, right? Because, the story is that you're a tinfoil hat, you're a conspiracy theorist, you've got a black helicopter hovering over your head or something like that. But, those days are over. That is all over with because it is clear and it is getting more and more and more powerful, the knowledge, the information, that this is not a conspiracy theory, that this is a conspiracy fact, and it's happening now all across the United States and all across the world. So, yes, you are going to find yourself, as an American, you will find yourself completely at odds with and deeply concerned by the agenda for the 21st century. And that is what it's called, Agenda 21. It's not Area 51, it's not Catch 22. It's the agenda for the 21st century, and that's what it's called by the United Nations, okay? And it's a blueprint. This is what it is. It is a blueprint. It is the action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all information, all energy, and all human beings in the world. It is a completely comprehensive plan. It is an inventory and control plan. And we are seeing it mainly as a land use plan, but I'm going to show you how everything that's happening now that you're experiencing is Agenda 21. And in fact, it's almost like it's not what is Agenda 21, it's what isn't Agenda 21. And you're going to have to look long and hard to find what isn't. I'll tell you what, this is not Agenda 21 right here, okay? So what it is, it's a transition from representative government to government by unelected boards and commissions. It's an erasure of our jurisdictional boundaries. It is a loss of our private property rights and private property ownership. It's a loss of sovereignty and ultimately, of course, a loss of our freedom because our personal sovereignty is the most important private property we have. Our bodies are our private property. And this plan is about inventorying and controlling not just all of your land and your water and everything on the earth, but you too. So it's a nonpartisan issue, obviously, right? Because you're going to be concerned not just as Americans, but as free human beings. And of course, not just as Americans, but as people across the world. This is an international plan. It is a plan for global governance, for one world government. So yeah, I am a Democrat. I'm a liberal Democrat. And it's funny because I was on Glenn Beck's show a couple of weeks back. I don't know if you caught that. And he said, I made a comment at the beginning of the show, and he said, well, I don't know how it is that a liberal progressive Democrat could be, out there talking about Agenda 21. And I said, hey, I said I was a liberal Democrat. I didn't say I was progressive, And somebody's got to take back that party. So here it is. Yeah, why not? So United Nations Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, it was signed onto, it's an agreement. It was signed onto by 179 nations, including the United States, in 1992 at the United Nations Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. George H.W. Bush committed the United States to implementing sustainable development and it's been supported by every president ever since, right? It's a global plan, but it's implemented locally. So that's why we're seeing it locally. That's its strength. The strength of the plan is that it's global, but implemented locally. And that's also its weakness, because we are local. Okay? So here it is. UN Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, is the biggest public relations scam in the history of the world. But it's far more than that. The agenda for the 21st century is a recipe for our destruction. It enables and justifies the monitoring, metering, and restricting of our energy and water usage. And you'll see that as smart meters, right? And it's not just your gas and your electric meters, also water meters. Smart water meters are coming. Instituting a carbon tax on our industry. It enables and justifies pulverizing our roads and destroying our dams, sinking our economy, exhausting our military with endless war, diagnosing a huge portion of our population with mental illness and drugging us, sometimes from childhood all the way through the entire course of our lives. Bleeding our transportation budgets with high-cost trains to nowhere. Revamping the school system with sustainable development principles from pre-kindergarten all the way to postgraduate school. Declaring our public lands off limits to humans, changing every land use document in the nation to require high-density housing in city centers so that you can be more easily managed, controlled, and surveilled. It allows for warrantless searches and domestic surveillance and identifying us as enemy combatants right here in our own nation. You thought I was going to say the homeland. You know, if an enemy was trying to destroy us, it couldn't do a better job, could it? Because what does an enemy do? What did we do when we went into Iraq? We destroyed the infrastructure. We took down the dams. We took down the bridges. We took care of the roads. We took them out. We went into the educational system. We replaced the government. This is what an invading army does. This is the erection of corporatocracy. It is a global totalitarian state, and it's happening right now. It happens, it doesn't have flashing lights on it. It's not called Agenda 21. That's how come all those people can say, well, we don't know what you're talking about. Agenda 21, you're making that up, aren't you? Or sometimes now you're going to hear, oh, that Agenda 21. Oh, no, that's a good thing. We didn't realize you were talking about that Agenda 21, right? You see that now, because we know. The more of us who know, and the more of us who speak out and speak the truth, the less power they have. There is power. There is power in the people. So I know this is, this is a stealth plan in plain sight, right? And it does sound crazy. It is a crazy plan. We are not crazy. The plan is crazy. So there's an overarching political and social philosophy that goes with this plan, okay? And it's called communitarianism. Now, we are Americans, and we have our Constitution, and it guarantees us our individual rights, right? Our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those rights were not granted to us by our government, right? And they can't be taken away by a government. We were born with those rights. We were born with those rights. These are our unalienable rights granted to us by who? Our Creator. That's right. Okay, they can't be taken away from us by anyone. That's what our Constitution guarantees us. But communitarianism says that the individual's rights need to be balanced with the rights of the community. Now, what are the rights of the community? They are undelineated. They can change at any time, right? They are granted or taken away by the government. Now, when you balance the individual's rights with the rights of the community, the individual's rights are like a feather, and the community's rights are like a brick. They always outweigh the individual's rights. They are always more powerful and more weighty than the individual's rights. And this is the overarching political philosophy behind sustainable development. So if you want to take a look at a communitarian state, what does a communitarian state look like? It looks like Nazi Germany, Communist Russia, Communist China. Now let's take a look at what happens when you balance your individual rights, you selfish individual, with the rights of the community, okay? We're going to do it like this. We're going to take 2 clear glasses. Now, one is a clear glass of water, and that is your constitutional republic. That's what we have here in this country, right? Constitutional republic. We're going to put it down, a clear glass of water. Now we're going to put down a clear glass of milk. That is a communitarian state. Nazi Germany, Soviet Union. Okay, now we're going to take a clear glass pitcher. We're going to put it down here. We're going to balance your individual rights, your constitutional republic, with the rights of the community, your communitarian state. We're going to balance them. What do you have?
Diluted milk.
You got milk. You've got milk. Your individual rights have been subsumed into the rights of the community. This is what happens. So, the UN Agenda 21 is also dependent on the Hegelian dialectic. Now, don't take a nap here, because here's how it works. It is where a crisis is created, and then a solution is posed, and the compromise between the two now becomes the new normal, the third way, right? So, this is how it works. This is the balance between the crisis and the solution. It becomes the new normal. You never would have agreed to it if it hadn't been for this crisis that now you must respond to quickly without too much thought, right? You got to respond to it. I'll show you what it is. Here we go. Well, you know what the crisis is, don't you? What's the crisis? Climate change. Global warming, climate change, right? Here it is. This is out of my local paper. It's hard to deny that the Earth is functioning well over capacity. Like an overworked horse, it's simply a matter of time before the global organism collapses. Right? Feel that? Feel that? Feel that fear? Feel that pressure, that tension, that panic? You got to do something. You got to do something. Oh, planet's in danger, right? The sea levels are rising. Life forms are threatened. There's no time to lose, right? In 100 years, you're going to need a snorkel to get out of bed, right? Panic, chaos, collapse, okay? All intelligent people agree that it's our fault. Your greedy, selfish, wasteful ways have almost destroyed the planet.
Boy, am I dumb.
Woo, that's right. Okay, so now what do you do? Well, let's see. Here comes the UN. Here comes the UN to the rescue, right? Here comes the UN to the rescue. Oh, we got it. We're going to save the planet. The United Nations World Commission on Environment and Development in 1987. They put out a document, it's called Our Common Future. Now, by now, I know you have heard of sustainable development, right? How could you not? Because we now have sustainable, I don't know, soccer balls, right? We have sustainable water. We have sustainable everything. Sustainable development, everything now, right? Where did that come from? That came from the United Nations, from that book in 1987, Our Common Future. And what is it? Sustainable development. It is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs, right? Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, who wants to compromise the ability of future generations to meet their needs? Do you think when the founding fathers got going here in the United States, they thought to themselves, let's see what we can do to really mess stuff up for the people in the year 2012? No. So, when you know that sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs, then your very next conclusion, as it was with the United Nations, is yes, indeed. Everything we're doing right now does compromise the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And what are we going to do about it? So the General Assembly said to that World Commission on Environment and Development, they said, will you come back in 5 years with the action plan, with the blueprint for sustainable development? And they said, yeah, sure. And they did. And here it is. This is Agenda 21. This is the document. It is Earth Summit, Agenda 21, the United Nations Program of Action from Rio de Janeiro. It's 300 pages. It's 40 chapters. You can get it on un.org if you want to pay the United Nations $25. And it, in fact, is a green mask. This is one of the reasons I called my book Behind the Green Mask. This itself is a green mask. It is the inventory and control plan. So here's the Secretary General of that commission, of the World Commission of Environment and Development, Maurice Strong, right? 1992, Maurice Strong. This is before he had to run out of the United States for the oil for food scandal, right? He said, this is what he said was unsustainable. You're unsustainable, I'll tell you that. The middle-class lifestyle, the affluent middle-class lifestyle that you and I and every American aspires to is unsustainable. Single-family residences, private vehicles, appliances, air conditioning, meat eating, livestock, tillage, and that's just a few things, dams. Somebody's going to use that water. This is, well, what is it? This is an attack on us. There's no question about it. This is an attack on rural people, on suburban people, on middle-class people, on Americans, on free people worldwide. Now, it involves economics, housing, transportation, land use, health, water, energy, food production, and population control. China was one of the signatories to Agenda 21, which is not a treaty, it is an agreement, right? They signed on to it, and you know what? They have their own Agenda 21, like every country does that's signed on. And in theirs, they have a population control clause. They're working on a sterilization vaccine with the United States. So I know you want to see this. This is the image of Agenda 21. And you can probably see this. This is 3 concentric circles, not concentric. They're 3, it's like a Venn diagram. There are 3 circles. It's environment or ecology, economy, and equity, social equity. And when they're in balance, where they're in balance in the center, that is sustainable development. That's when everything's in balance, right? Economy, ecology, and equity, social equity. Okay, right. What is that? So, what you're going to see is this, everything is to be in balance. No one's to have more than anyone else. Okay? Now this is based on the precautionary principle. And for those of you who have concerns about climate change and feeling that, you know, perhaps it's not exactly what they say it is, okay? Here you go. Here's why it doesn't matter if you say, I've got 10 scientists here. I have 100. No, I've got 1,000. No, I've got 10,000. I have 20,000 scientists who say there's no such thing as anthropogenic global warming. No, I have 50,000, right? Well, here's why it doesn't matter. The precautionary principle. That is principle number 15 of Agenda 21. And it says, if an action or a policy has a suspected risk of causing harm, to the public or the environment in the absence of scientific consensus that the action or policy is harmful. The burden of proof that it is not harmful falls on those taking the action. How about that, huh? You're guilty until proven innocent. In the European Union, that is compulsory. It makes law. In the United States, it is called the precautionary approach, and it just makes policy, supposedly. So this is a global plan. It's implemented locally. And in 1992, when it was signed on to by George H.W. Bush and 178 other leaders, it was a soft law. Soft law. It was not ratified by our Congress and did not need to be. Very first thing that Clinton did, Clinton took office, he was elected in November, January he took office. 6 months later, in June of 1993, he created the President's Council on Sustainable Development. The sole purpose of that was to implement United Nations Agenda 21 in the United States. That was the sole purpose of this. And when people say to you, when they mock you, when they shame you, when they write their little lies in the mainstream press and they say, this is a non-binding agreement. How could this possibly have any impact here in the United States, right? You've seen that, haven't you? This is how. Not only the fact that when a president signs on to an agreement, what he's essentially doing is saying that the United States will not do anything to block that agreement. But the President's Council on Sustainable Development, created solely to implement Agenda 21 here in the United States, was made up of 12 cabinet-level secretaries, right? 12 federal agencies: HUD, EPA, Education, Environment, Commerce, Interior, Defense, right? Transportation. The sole purpose of this was to have all of those federal agencies change their policies to bring them into compliance with United Nations Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. Who else was on the President's Council Sustainable Development? The captains of industry, many of them, including Ken Lay. Ken Lay from Enron was on the President's Council on Sustainable Development. Also, the PG&E, Dow Chemical, many others. In addition, you had non-governmental organizations, nonprofits like the Nature Conservancy, the World Wildlife Fund, the World Resource Institute, the Sierra Club, okay? That's who was there. I don't think you were there. You didn't even know that this was going on, but it was. That was back in 1993. So the first thing they did, and this is important to know because this is how it got in, this is how it came in to your city, to your town, wherever you live, no matter how small your town is. It's not like it's coming. It's there. Okay? So this is how it happened. In 1993, the President's Council on Sustainable Development, they went to the American Planning Association, a private group, and they said, hey, can you guys do us a favor? Can you come up with a way that we can get this into every single town, city, county, state in the entire United States? Can you write us a land use book that we can get this into everywhere? And they said, sure. And it took them about 6 years, but they came up with it. It's called Growing Smart, Legislative Guidebook with model statutes for planning and the management of change. Now, I didn't bring the whole book because it weighs 12 pounds. They got this into every single university, every college, every planning department in the entire United States. And what is it? It's model statutes for planning. So when you go to your council or you go to your county commissioners and they come up with some new ordinance, some new statute, some new law, some new rule, they are not making that up. They're getting it out of a box of rules, whether it comes from this group or another one. They are not writing these laws themselves. So, fine, by the year 2002, This book was in every single university. All your planners are being trained with it, okay? 2002, everybody's been trained in it, right? Well, 2002 was around the time that I saw that there was a planning revolution going on, that there was something really big happening. Now, I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was a government appraiser. I testified. I was an expert witness. I just retired. I was an expert witness in land use and land valuation for the government, for the Department of Transportation. So if you were having your property taken by the government, somebody has to say how much it's worth. That was me. So when I'd go into planning departments and I would see that, hey, it's pretty darn hard to say what somebody's property is worth when I don't know what they can do with it. In fact, it doesn't seem like they can do anything with it by right. In fact, that planning department appears to be there to stop people from using their property. And so I had a lot of exciting adventures getting 86'd out of planning departments, thrown out, told not to come back, because I was kind of loud in there. I was kind of yelling in there. I got applause in the planning departments, okay, from people who were sitting there trying to get something going on their property. So, okay, your government knew that you weren't going to be too happy about this. They said, hey, what's going to happen when people wake up and realize that this is now a dictatorship? We don't want them to get excited about it. We don't want them to feel that they have no power. What are we going to do? They've commissioned another book. It's called Sustainable America, A New Consensus. Now, you know what consensus is. Real consensus is all of us together here, get together, and we have something we're talking about doing. And we work it out. Everybody gets a voice. We all work it out. Everyone discusses it might take all night. It could take days to agree to something. That is real consensus. Agreement of all parties, right? That's real consensus. But hey, we've got a new consensus, right? Sustainable America, a new consensus. What's that mean? Neutralization of the opposition. Neutralizing your enemies. Neutralize and convert. So when you go to those visioning meetings that are put on by your government, you know those visioning meetings, come on down. Give us your opinion of Spokane 2040, right? We want to know what you think, about what we're going to be doing with the center of your town. We want you, come on down. We're going to give you your crayons. You're going to sit at those little tables and color with your gold stars, your clicker. You got your clicker. You're going to be voting. Oh, I like hey, do you want business as usual? That's where you live. Do you want sprawl? Is that an ugly word? Sprawl. Do you want sprawl? That's where you live. Or do you want planned future? Planned future. Oh, I love it. Planned future. That's what you want. So here's how they did this. Because they need so-called community buy-in. Never have so many people been solicited for their opinion and been so ignored. And this is the way they do it. This is the new consensus, okay? Neutralize and convert. So, it does not allow for dissent, and what is it? It is a mind control technique developed by the Rand Corporation post-World War II, a Cold War technique designed to bring groups of people to a predetermined outcome while giving them the impression that it was all their idea. You are so smart. You came up with that plan all on your own. Aren't you great? Neutralize the opposition. What, you don't like it? Well, you know what else? They infiltrate your neighborhood associations. Your own government will find people who come to those little meetings. People come to those meetings and they love it. There's a few people that really think it's great that aren't in the fold yet. And they say, where do you live? oh, would you like to start a neighborhood association? Because they want community buy-in. Because then when you go down there and you say, I don't like this, they say, well, hey, here's your neighborhood president who's representing your entire community. Remember, communitarianism. Individual versus the community. It could be the global community right down to your town community, right down to your neighborhood community. This is about manufactured consensus. All right? So when you see the words capacity building, strengthening community, consensus building, vibrant, walkable, bikeable, livable, change. These are all jargon terms that are part of this plan, right? This is a subversion of real community and neighborhood groups. So that's how they do it. Now, for people who think that I'm making this up, she's making this up. Hey, by the way, if you think I'm fear-mongering, I did not come up with this plan. I am a reporter of this plan. I'd love to have come up with this plan, I'll tell you. I would have deep-sixed it instantly if it occurred to me. And you know, I'm from Venice Beach, and that's where there's all these script writers. Everybody back when I was living there, you know, you just walk down the street and there's all these clack, clack, clack typewriters, people writing their scripts, right? Some big payments went to script writers to come up with this, because this is a whole world plan, and it is being sold to you. It is a manipulation. So here it is. This is great. You're going to love this. It's a children's book. Children's book written and published in 1994 after Agenda 21. It's called Rescue Mission Planet Earth, a children's edition of Agenda 21. A children's edition of Agenda 21. You can leave it. It's okay. So what is this? It's lots of pictures. In fact, there's even a line in here. This is for children. It says, the planet groans every time it registers another birth. Yeah, this is for kids. Okay? That's right. Okay, so this is a painful thing, because you know what? Think about this. Your children are being indoctrinated. Your children and grandchildren are being indoctrinated. And not only that, but they are being empowered with the concept that they have the power to destroy the earth and to save it. You want to give a child the concept that they have that kind of power? So here's something in the back of the book. It's turning Agenda 21 into action is a big challenge for us all. Thousands of people at the United Nations and in governments are working on it. This booklet will show parents and educators how children can start to be a part of this work. See that? This is outcome-based education, mastery learning, direct instruction, and lifelong learning. Those are all code words for Agenda 21, manipulation. This is all about manipulation. This is about teaching you to be part of a cohort. This is about social equity. This is about no one standing out. This is about no one better or smarter or sharper than anyone else. This is about a race to mediocrity. This is about being afraid to stand up and say, this is wrong. So, how are they doing it? What's it all about? The idea, now, raise your hand if you live in an apartment on top of a shop. Oh, nobody's raising their hand. What do you know?
We all will.
Now, check it out. The idea,
My daughter does.
okay, keep that to yourself for a minute. The idea is that life in the suburbs and the rural areas is unsustainable because we produce too many greenhouse gas emissions, right? And we live in that evil sprawl, okay? That's where you live. If you live on more than a couple thousand square feet of land in your own house, you're living in sprawl, all right? In fact, most of your state is sprawl. Let's not kid ourselves. In fact, most of the country is sprawl. Now, it costs too much. This is the green mask. This is why I called my book Behind the Green Mask. It costs too much. This is the story, the green story. It costs too much to get public transportation. Well, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck if people are not driving. This is the idea. So it costs too much to get public transportation out to you in the rural and suburban areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring you into the city center where you can take public transportation, right, wherever it goes or wherever it doesn't go, whether it's actually there or not, it does not matter, okay? This is the justification for moving all of us into the dense city centers. Smart growth. Remember I told you that, remember I held up the Growing Smart legislative guidebook? Growing smart is smart growth. Smart growth. What is that? That is ground floor. You've seen these buildings in the center of town, right? They're empty, mostly. Empty. Paid for with your transportation tax dollars or your property tax dollars, your tax dollars, subsidized by your tax dollars. What are they? Ground floor retail built right to the edge of the sidewalk, 12 feet high. 1, 2, or more stories of residential apartments or condos on top of that, often empty, often vacant, right? Often bankrupt. Around the back in an alley, access for 1 car parking or less per unit. Around the front, you've got your wide sidewalk for your bistro tables, for your coffee shop that's not there. Then out in the street, you've got your bike lane. And then there's 1 lane for driving because your street's on a diet, just like you. And right in the middle of the street, you've got your median, okay? And on the other side of the street, it's the same. This is smart growth, high density, urban development in the center of your city, often called a transit village. It's not going to be a city anymore. It's a transit village now, built close to transportation on a transportation line. This is the plan. Now, how are they doing this? They are using an international group called the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives, ICLEI, I-C-L-E-I. You've seen that, right? Okay. Now, ICLEI, it was called International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives. Now they call it ICLEI. Those letters, they stand for nothing. It's just like a monolithic I-C-L-E-I. Local Governments for Sustainability. Local Governments for Sustainability. They want you to think it's all local. This is all grassroots. This is all organic. It's coming up from you. This is all your idea, right? This is all your idea. We're just helping you realize the reality of what you want, which is to live in an apartment on top of a shop in the center of a city. Okay, so ICLEI is a non-governmental organization, and it was created to implement Agenda 21 worldwide. It was created in 1990. It's a stealth organization. Now, you're going to see, people will tell you that there are 1,200 members worldwide, 1,200 cities that are members worldwide, and there's 600 cities in the United States. That's not true. ICLEI does not report the truth on their website. I happened to catch their real website before they took it off during the Rio Plus 20. There was the Rio Plus 20, the 20th anniversary of the Rio de Janeiro meeting. It was just in Brazil in June, right? Well, ICLEI had their new website up, and they showed 7,800 cities worldwide. There are more than 1,300 cities in the United States that are members of ICLEI, the International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives. It is a stealth organization. It says it gauges livability, it measures and inventories your energy and water use. They are about to roll out, in fact, they are rolling out now in Southeast Asia their new plan, which is not just energy management, but also water management. That is coming our way. This is a restriction. It is actually, literally, a parallel government. It's a policy and legislative arm of Agenda 21, ICLEI. And there are 25 cities in Washington State and 5 counties that are members. And if you don't see your city on this list, I'm going to read the list, actually. I'm going to tell you first it's Island County, King County, Skagit County, Snohomish, Thurston, and Whatcom. Then you're going to see Auburn, Bellingham, Bothell, excuse me if I say these wrong, Coupeville, Edmonds, Everett, Issaquah, Kirkland, Lacey, Linwood, Mercer Island, Oak Harbor, Olympia, Port Townsend, Redmond, Renton, Sammamish, SeaTac, Seattle, Shoreline, Snoqualmie, Spokane, Tacoma, and Tumwater. Now, if you don't see your town on that, don't be worried about it, or if it's been taken off because your city has decided to quit paying their dues, I'll tell you what, that's a way to get us off the trail. Your city will just say, okay, we're not going to pay dues. You guys are coming down, you're making a big stink at our city council, which you do need to do. You get your city off of that. But you can't stop there. When your city says, all right, we're not going to pay dues to ICLEI anymore, you, uncle, you got us. No. Because what happens then is that they've still got all of the, what? What does ICLEI do? They come up with ordinances, statutes, they do protocols, they have greenhouse gas emissions measurement systems, and this is all in place, and this is what they're doing. You're paying for it. You're paying for it. It says it's a non-governmental organization, but it's made up of government officials. So you know when you go to a government meeting, right? You know when you go to a government meeting, they're supposed to tell you that they're having it, right? Open meetings laws. You know you've got them. You've got them in Washington State, all over. They've got to tell you they're having a meeting when they're having a government meeting. They might put a notice up at 5 p.m. in the hallway of the city council meeting for a Monday morning meeting, right? But it's there. But this is a group that is made up of governmental officials, but it's a non-governmental group. You don't know what's going on. You, in fact, didn't even know about ICLEI until recently. You never even knew that they were actually monitoring your greenhouse gas emissions. This group is an international group that has details on all of your energy, on where it comes from, on how much you're using, on your water. This is a parallel government. Now, you know what? When Obama was running for election last time, I know I said I'm a Democrat. I'm a liberal Democrat. I did not vote for Barack Obama. Yay! Okay. I didn't vote for the other guy either. I voted for Bob Barr, who I had never heard of, and I said, all right, I'm voting for him. Now, when Obama ran last time, he said that he was going to commit the United States. I don't think he meant Michelle and the kids and him. But he said he's going to commit the United States to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% below 1990 levels by the year 2050. That's a lot, right? 80% below 1990 levels by the year 2050. So, you know, I'm kind of a math person. So I go and I find a chart. Because I'm thinking, when was the last time we were releasing 80% below 1990 levels of greenhouse gas? What year was that? What year? What year? 1934. A stellar year for the United States, as you recall, right? The depths of the Depression, 1934. But if you think about this, there are way more people now than there were in 1934. So on a per capita basis, you are back in the 1880s, right? Except you can't have a horse or livestock, right? Yeah. So you're going to be on your bike. That's it. Now, that's it. 1990, 80% below 1990 levels. Now, here's the other important thing. One other, you know, all of this is important, okay? But it's good. I want you to understand this is not some conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy fact. So, remember the Kyoto Treaty? The U.S. did not sign on to the Kyoto Treaty, right? But that did not stop 1,055 United States mayors. Now, this was Seattle Mayor Greg Nichols' idea, supposedly, working with ICLEI. This is an ICLEI project. It's called the Mayor's Climate Protection Campaign. And somebody mentioned this about, you know, how 500 mayors had signed on to it. It is 1,055 United States mayors have signed on to it, including all the members here of Ickley in Washington plus another 10 more, right? Nearly 2 million people are in cities that have agreed to this plan. What is it? It meets or exceeds the Kyoto Treaty. It's a land use plan, erecting smart growth and saying that it is anti-sprawl. That's where you live. Anti-sprawl. And it supports carbon trading. What's carbon trading? That's buying nothing and selling it to somebody else for a lot. And then charging you when you go. So I looked at the Kyoto Treaty and I said, hey, I wonder, it's an international treaty, right? I said, I wonder which country reduced their greenhouse gas emissions the most. Which country that signed on to Kyoto reduced their greenhouse gas emissions the most? What do you think? What do you think? Any ideas? You're all wrong. Latvia, tiny Latvia, clinging desperately to the edge of the Soviet Union. Tiny Latvia, right? What are they known for? They can shut off all of their heat, all the electricity with one switch, because you're living in one of those concrete bunker things that goes up 20 or 30 stories. So they do that in the wintertime. And what else are they known for? Human rights abuses. So you too, what does that tell you? You too can control all of your greenhouse gas emissions. All you have to do is have the switch and abuse your people. It's easy. Yeah. So one other thing you're going to see from Ickley is that they have a book in your planning department. Your planning departments are lying to you. I know you know this. This is true, right? Your planning department's lying to you. They're saying they don't know anything about this. They don't know what you're talking about. We had to go look it up. That's what they say. They brought up that. They're conspiracy theorists. They brought up Agenda 21. We didn't know what it was. We had to go look it up. Right. Here it is. This is the local Agenda 21 planning guide. You're going to find that. I say we have to tie down the planners and run in and go and look on their shelves, because it's in the bookshelf of your planning department. It's the local Agenda 21 planning guide, and it tells planners how to do visioning meetings. It teaches you not just how to create the visioning meeting, which is what you got invited to. Your city invited you to come on down and give your opinion on this new plan, right? That visioning meeting that you probably actually never even knew happened. Why not? Because the instructions in this book tell you, don't invite the general public. No, you don't want to do that, because you know why? Well, yes, you know why. Because you might have dissent. Oh, we don't allow dissent anymore. It's messy. So, what do? They infiltrate. They go into your town first before they bring the plan out, and they go to whoever's running the town, the guys with the money, the dudes who are making decisions there in the town, and they go, hey, we got this great plan. You're going to be making a lot of money with this plan, because we're going to be filling the town with these developments that do not pencil out financially, that there is no demand for. But don't worry, because we're going to be subsidizing you with government dollars. So you're going to be fine. We just need you to pack these meetings. Who comes into those meetings? You get consultants. The consultant who's creating the plan, or I shouldn't say creating, is just recycling the same plan. It's the same plan all over the United States, right? The plan is the same plan everywhere. So those meetings get filled with government officials, with government employees, with people who are on boards and commissions, right? With people who are already on board with a plan. How about that? So what's the goal? The goal, they use the green mask of environmental concern, and the two parts of Agenda 21 are imposed. Now, one is smart growth, right? And that is moving populations into concentrated city centers where they can be more easily restricted, monitored, managed, and surveilled. And the other part is the wildlands. That's where you are. That's getting people out of the rural and suburban areas, blocking access to wilderness roads and resources, and shifting land ownership from private to public. That's what that's about. Now, by 2002, this plan, this book, Growing Smart was in every single university. All the planning departments had it. And there was a planning revolution going on. And this is how it happens, because most states, you have your Growth Management Act, right, from 1990. Now, most states require that every city and county and state have a general plan. And that pretty much is the design of your town, right down to the actual physical structure of your town, to how, your transportation should be, where businesses should be located. Everybody's got that, and that's what your Growth Management Act is, right? 1990. But not only that, but it's the blueprint, right? But not only that, but it trumps zoning. So you know what you're zoned, right? You're zoned R2 or R1, or you're zoned C2, or you're zoned industrial or something. You know that if they're going to change your zoning, you have to get notified, right? You know that. They can't spot zone you. You have to get notified. But your general plan takes precedence over your zoning. This is important to know. So when your general plan is changed, they don't have to tell you, because it's general. It's a comprehensive plan. It's not specific to your property. So you might find yourself, you thought you were zoned R2 or C2 or C1 or something, commercial or residential. No, you're not. You are general planned, transit-oriented development, or multi-residential, high-density development. Now you go in there to get your permit, right? You got a commercial piece of property, you want to put a little commercial thing on there. No. You're transit-oriented development now. You've got to put in high-density apartments on top of that commercial. Well, not everybody can do that, You need a lot of money for that. And not only that, there's no demand for it. Yeah, it's a recipe for bankruptcy. The banks know that. They're not going to loan you any money for that. Who's going to get the money for that? The favored developers, who are getting no recourse loans from your government, who are getting partnerships with your government, so they're building these things with your subsidized tax dollars. This is how it happens. You're sitting there, you've got your commercial piece of land, you want to build on it, you can't get a permit. Why not? Because you're zoned now, your general plan for transit-oriented development. Well, you're sitting there, you're paying taxes on it. Pretty soon you're like, you got to clean up trash, people are dumping on it, you're going in there for years, you're paying a permit expediter, you got hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, and whoop, you lost it. Right? This is how it works. Now, here's the rest of it. Federal and state transportation tax dollars are funneled through metropolitan planning organizations. Now, here's where the regional government thing comes in, because what do we have here? We have city, county, state, and Fed, do we not? Now, what do they all have in common? You vote for those representatives. This plan is global, regional, neighborhood. What do they all have in common? You don't vote. That is not representative government, right? So your regional board is Metropolitan Planning Organization, okay? Now, there are 500 of these in the United States. Metropolitan Planning Organizations and Councils of Government, okay? And there's 14 of them in Washington. Now you've got Puget Sound, for an example, Puget Sound Regional Council. Puget Sound Regional Council. That is, what is it? It's King, Pierce, Snohomish, and Kitsap counties, right? It's also 72 cities. Now imagine that. I mean, all of us could be sitting at that table, and there would probably be less of us than there would be supposed representatives on that regional board. That regional board is made up of elected officials, but you don't elect that board. What that means is you can't remove the people on that board, and you have no impact on what goes on your regional boards. Regional boards are the ones that are making this plan happen. They are not representative. They are not answerable to you. In fact, you may not even know they exist. You may not even know where they meet if you do know they exist, because think about that. This one's only in 4 counties. There are some that are in 20, 30 counties. Well, let's just say every month they meet in a different one. And you don't even know it's happening. And this is where the money comes from, because Puget Sound Regional Council, for example, has control of $180 million in federal transportation dollars a year. Isn't it great? Now, HUD, think about this. We're controlled by grants and federal money, okay? It's a really tough thing to go to one of your representatives and say, don't take that money. Don't take that money. We don't want that money. If you're going to do that, and you are going to do that, you need to be there when that person turns down those federal grants, because that is political suicide. To look at the community and say, I'm sorry, they got hundreds of millions of dollars in grants they're handing us, and I'm going to say no, because we want to keep our sovereignty. You've got to be there. So, HUD gives out $100 million a year. Now, were they on the President's Council on Sustainable Development? Yes, okay. They gave $6.5 million in planning grants to Washington State in 2010 for sustainable community regional planning grants. Nothing gets built, right? Who's making money off of this? Consultants, planners, right? Nothing gets constructed. These planning grants are not to build anything. They're to hold visioning meetings and to make plans. That's where the money's going. You know why we have no money? Because of things like this. Because our money, your money, is getting funneled into these plans, which are designed to take the value and the use of your property away from you permanently. This is what this is about. So when you see Vision 2040, which is Puget Sound Regional Council, when you see Sustainable Thurston, Envision Skagit 2060, when you see these grants from HUD, from the Department of Energy, from the Department of Transportation and EPA, those were all in the President's Council of Sustainable Development. Climate action plans, shoreline management plans, buffer zones, visioning for sustainable development, livable communities, complete streets, transit villages, public-private partnerships. That's what that's about. That is fascism. This is fascism. This is a totalitarian state that is using your money and corporate pressure to fund non-governmental organizations, nonprofits, to pressure your government. See, it's a circle. To create more rules and more laws and more regulations for you. And speaking of circles, here's the Marin County. This is Marin County, California, the cover of the Marin County, California Comprehensive Plan, General Plan. Whoops. Right inside. Can you see that? Right inside is the image of United Nations Agenda 21. Sustainable development, those 3 circles, you see them? This is what it's about. There's no question about it. This is what it is. And I'll tell you what else. The San Francisco Bay Area, One Bay Area Plan, which is supposed to be 9 counties, 111 cities, 7.5 million people, one vision, right, is the same plan as the Hanoi Center, the Hanoi Capital Region Plan 2030. It's the same plan. We're paying over and over and over again for the same plan. It's the same plan. What is it? Smart growth and the wildlands. It's always the same plan. High density development on a train line or a bus line, packed into the city center, clearing you out of the rural and suburban areas. It's the unelected shadow government. Your regional boards are the unelected shadow government and it's being sold to you as an economic driver. If you want to compete, you want to compete? If you want to compete, you better join together in a region. Think regionally. You know that Think Global, Act Local? That is a UN plan. That is a UN slogan, right? Now they got a new one. It's think globally, think globally, think regionally, act locally. Think regionally, think regionally. Remember? Okay. Hello. So, okay, here we go. Don't forget, when you're visioning on somebody else's property, okay? When you're coloring in with your crayons, and those people are probably not there. So, sustainable development and smart growth, it's an ideology. It's not just a building style. It's called the new urbanism. It's anti-rural. I just came from Maine, the state of Maine. And I looked at, of course, I travel all over the United States, and I always research wherever it is I'm going. And I looked at Maine, and of course, Maine has the exact same thing as everybody else. It's not different. They just have a little different names for it. And I was looking at their wildland stuff, and I looked at Maine Earth First. And what does it say right there on the website, right on their first page? It says, visualize industrial collapse. Yeah. That sounds like fun, doesn't it? Visualize industrial collapse. So it gets worse. I have to say, this is about winners and losers, isn't it? Any idea what you're going to be? So it gets worse. Because, we know we have 50 states, right? We have 50 states, but it's not 50 states anymore. It is 11 mega regions. I'm not making this up, okay? In case you think I'm making this up, I am not. You go to america2050.org. You see megaregions. That is a project of the Lincoln Land Institute, the Urban Land Institute, and the Regional Plan Association. And the idea, which is being implemented right now, is that you don't need 50 states, right? Because you've got 26% of the land area with 74% of the population in it already. So what you need to do is get those people who are still out there in the rural areas into the city centers. And it's not like they chopped up the U.S. into 11 sections. No. It is 11 locations that are the highest density population. This is a war on rural people, okay? So this is how it works. Now, Washington, there's 11 megaregions. Washington is in a megaregion. Not all of Washington, though. Because why? Because remember I said it breaks jurisdictional boundaries. So even your regional councils do not include your entire county often. We're talking about breaking your ability to have an impact with your vote. So what these are, megaregions, a portion of Washington State, a portion of Oregon, and what else? Part of Canada. In Southern California, you've got SoCal, and that includes part of Southern California and part of Mexico. That's right. Now, we're serious here. You talk about breaking jurisdictional boundaries, you talk about breaking sovereign boundaries. You're talking about breaking sovereign boundaries. And this is being implemented right now. Right now. They're expecting huge population increases. Now, everywhere I go, I speak to groups of people who look like this. I'm not having any more kids. I don't know about you. I'm not long for the planet, and neither are a lot of you. Yet, these predictions are for huge population increases for the city centers, and this is why, remember crisis, panic, we've got to build high-density urban development, or what are we going to do with all these people who are coming? Now, I'm not talking about people who are coming over the border. I'm talking about people. Where are these population increases coming from? Most of us, by the year 2050, which is the drop-dead date, no pun intended, are going to be drop dead. So where are these population increases supposed to be coming from? The rural and suburban areas. This is reorganization of every single city and every single county and every single state in the United States. All right? And I'll tell you what, a lot of cities that you're seeing high density development in now are interim cities. They are not the ultimate stop. They themselves will be cleaned out of people, and the people will then be put into the higher density cities. You want to see where it's going? This is one world government. You want to see where it's going? It is the EU. Take a look at the European Union, right? That started with a trade agreement. Now, I just spoke at an international conference on global governance. I didn't even know that's what I was talking about, but then I found out it's global governance we're talking about. So one of the other speakers was President Václav Klaus of the Czech Republic and Prime Minister John Howard of Australia. So when President Klaus of the Czech Republic was speaking, he said, you know what? We were under the control of the Soviet Union, and we wanted nothing more than to be free. We wanted to be free of the Soviet Union. And all we wanted to do was get free of the Soviet Union and join the EU and be part of Europe. He said we did that. And now we're under the thumb of Brussels. And it's even worse. He said, yes, I'm president of a country. What does that mean? This is a real serious concern. We are really talking about loss of sovereignty. And yes, I know you know about the United Nations policy on land use, right? Because, of course, it was established in 1976 with Habitat 1, where they said that, you could probably even recite this with me, that land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset, controlled by individuals, and subject to the pressures and inefficiencies of the market, right? Oh no, private land ownership is a principal accumulation of wealth and concentration of wealth. And therefore, it contributes to social injustice. Social injustice. Public control of land is therefore indispensable. This is where it's going. If you have doubts about communitarian law in the United States, you ever tried to get justice in the court? You know how much fun that is. How about your family law courts? Have you seen that? Communitarian law in the United States. When you look at the 2005 Supreme Court decision, the Kelo decision, most people think that meant that what the decision was in the Kelo decision was that the government could take your land and give it to you. No, that is not what it was. That was already in existence with redevelopment. We've had that for years. No. What the Kelo decision said was under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, you know that you are guaranteed due process and you are guaranteed the right to be paid fairly, just compensation for your property when it's taken by the government for a public use. So what did that Kelo decision do? It redefined public use to anything your government said it was. The end justifies the means. That is the end of private property, the end. Now we get to the wildlands. And this is where we are right now. And this is what this is really about here, right? 42% of Washington State, only 42% of the Washington State is owned by the government, federal, state, and local government. Only 42%. That's not enough. 2 million roadless acres here in Washington State. But that's not enough, right? No, we've got the North American wildways. This is the United States and Canada and Mexico. But you know what? Here's a map with no lines on it because you know why? Animals don't know when they're crossing a boundary because we have to think about the world as a world without boundaries so that animals can move freely through these corridors. If you can see these, they take up most of the land mass, right? Here you are in Washington, you're in two of them, the Pacific and the spine of the continent. Across Canada? Well, who needs Canada? How about this? You've got like, you've got Arizona, New Mexico. Who needs Arizona, New Mexico, Idaho, and Washington? Forget it, right? These are corridors. You've got cores, buffers, and corridors. And this is the plan. To what? To move you out of these areas. And they don't have the money to buy this stuff, do they? No, they don't have the money to buy this stuff, so they are going to either take conservation easements, that's where they pay you for those rights, supposedly, those rights that aren't worth anything when they're taken away from you when they're not paying you. But when you're a crony, or when you might, be making some deal with them, then they're going to pay you for a conservation easement, right? But otherwise, they're just going to take it through regulatory takings and not compensate you at all, and bleed you to death, so that eventually they can take your land. Well, maybe they'll acquire the fee as well because you are desperate now. That's right. They split your title. Split your title. What this does is it takes land out of private ownership, and this is the goal. The goal is to move you ultimately off of this land, out of this area, out of most of this state. That is the goal. Now, 40% of the land in the continental U.S. is actually in a watershed. 40% at least. And apparently it all drains to the Mississippi. Maybe it's like a piece of paper that's... You've got 10,000 rivers and streams that are flowing into the Puget Sound. You in a watershed? Probably. You can't use it. How about that? This is what happens. You think they're not taking you off. For those of you who still think that they're not trying to get you off of your rural and suburban land, let me tell you about my county, Sonoma County. We're considered the wine country of California. It's a rural county. We've got 1,384 miles of rural roads, right? County roads. The county, a couple years ago, they said, you know what? We can't afford to pave more than 150 miles of that 1,384 miles of roads. We're going to pulverize the rest of the roads, the rest of that 1,200 miles plus, and turn it into gravel. You think that's going to have an impact on your land value? Is that going to affect your ability to get your goods to market? Is that going to have an impact on your ability to sell your property or use your property? How about when they close your rural post office, right? The only way that you have, besides in-person conversation, that you can have a private communication with someone is through the mail. But they're going to close your rural post office. They're going to close your rural school. And then the less people who own private property out there, the less people there are paying taxes out there, the less services there are, the less support for your infrastructure, and it spirals down. This is the way it's designed. This is what it's designed to do. It's designed to destroy your ability to be independent. This is the purpose of this plan. In fact, the industrial and economic collapse is the purpose of this plan. This is the goal of the plan. And it's been very successful, wouldn't you say? Very successful. In fact, hey, how about those people, the Sacketts in Idaho? They won that Supreme Court decision, right? What did they get? What did they get? That poor couple who bought a $25,000 piece of land. I mean, you get much cheaper than that for a piece of land? They had no money. They bought a piece of land on the side of a lake, a piece of land like this. And they got their permits to build. Everything was cool, right? And then here comes the EPA knocking on the air there. They said, hey, you better put this back the way it was because you've got a wetland here. They said, no, wait, we got our permits. What are you talking about? No, you've got a wetland on your slanted property. And we're going to charge you $37,000 plus a day if you don't put it back just the way you found it. Well, they fought. They fought that. And they went all the way to the Supreme Court. What did they get? What did we win at the Supreme Court? What did we win? What did we win? I'll tell you. We won the right to challenge the government's threats to fine us for building on our own property. Tell me what a dictatorship looks like. Now, you know what? You need water. We're out here. There's a lot of water in Washington. You got a couple things. You got trees and you got water, right? And a few other things. You're having to conserve water in areas that have tremendous amount of water. This is about conservation. It's about restriction. It's about restricting your ability to use your land and water. And this is the goal of this plan. So here in San Francisco, in my area, they want to actually, we get all of our water from Hetch Hetchy, which is a companion valley to Yosemite Valley. It's like a mirror valley. Well, they dammed it back in the early 1900s, and they filled it with 117 billion gallons of water. And that's the water for San Francisco, for the Bay Area. But guess what? This year, in November, on the ballot in San Francisco, is a plan to take down the Hetch Hetchy Dam and free that river and free that beautiful valley so that it can be restored, so that Bambi can get together with Bambo. That's what it's all about. So guess what, though? Who's in favor of this? Who wants this? On one side are Republican lawmakers and environmentalists. Ronald Reagan's former Interior Secretary who want the dam removed and the valley restored. Now look at the rhetoric that he uses. This is Don Hodel, right? Former head of the Department of Interior. He says, listen to this. This is what he said. This is how they use their rhetoric and manipulation. He says, I think it will be hard to quell this idea of restoration. It's like ideas of freedom in a totalitarian regime. Once planted, they are impossible to repress forever. How about that? Who wants to stop this crazy plan? The Democrats. Why? Because it's their area. Feinstein, Pelosi, they're all from Boxer, they're all from San Francisco. They're like, wait a second, wait, we didn't mean that. Don't do that. That's our water. No, the Wildlands is a plan to remove humans and human activity from rural and suburban areas. And I call it the no-pay APA, right? Regulatory takings is what it's all about. View sheds, ridge lines, biotic resources, scenic, streamside thresholds, restrictions on your use, and not paying you, destroying your ability to live free and independent. That's what it's about. You bring people into the city centers. You know what? How many people from the city centers know really where their food comes from? I mean, really. And have ever had this thing about rural, the thing about suburban farms on your front yard, right? This is ridiculous, right? What are you going to get? A few tomatoes? We're not talking about, these are people who think that they actually are deluding themselves, that they're going to grow something on their front yard, on their 1,000 square foot front yard, that they're going to be able to eat like for more than about 2 days, right? And then they think about you. You think they feel sorry for you? You're losing your land rights. They're in an apartment, a 500 square foot apartment on the 7th floor, and they're worried about you and your land rights. They're like, oh, you're a pig. You got all this land. What are you doing with all this? What do you need all this land for? What do you need all this land for, right? What do you need all this land for? You don't need it, right? And your land, and then they have this fantasy about vertical farming. Have you guys checked that out? Vertical farming. It's farming in a parking structure. Yes, that's right. Farming in a parking structure. Cool idea. Yeah. Fantasy. This is not about reality. This is about taking enough people who are in cities, enough people who've lost their property or never had it to begin with, who don't care about property rights because they don't have any. And this is about social equity. No one should have more than anyone else. We should all have equal access and equal ability and equal ownership. And that means no private ownership. So here's what it is. The only economy we're going to have is taxes, fines, fees, lawsuits, and government grants. Right? Agenda, that's a government grant. Agenda 21 is a plan to produce social equity by impoverishing populations and creating total dependence on government. It is a corporatocracy. This is a corporatocracy. And knock that off, snap out of it. Using the center, you listen to me here, using the center You, that's you. Using the cover. This is how it works, okay? This is where it's at. This is the bottom line. Using the cover of environmentalism, the rigid control of a totalitarian state is in progress right now. Right now. That is what's behind the green mask. That is it. It is an abuse of our trust. It is a hijacking of the environmental movement. This is it. They are using the USA Patriot Act, Senate Bill 1867, the National Defense Authorization Act. This is what this is about. FBI surveillance now. They don't need a warrant for your hotel records, your bank records, your internet records, or your telephone records. This is what a totalitarian state looks like. We need to know. What's my favorite public-private partnership? Because that's fascism, right? Public-private partnership. What is it? What is it? It's prisons. Privately owned prisons. What do prisons need? Prisoners. How do you get more prisoners? You make more things crime. And you extend the terms. Right? That's what they've done, right? And guess what? We've got a porous border, little catch and release program, right? They spend a little 6 months in prison before they get deported, very often. Who gets the money for that? That's a lot of money for that porous border, isn't it? Prisons. How about this? You are going to demand, you're going to wait, gone to an airport lately, right? Go to an airport. I have to go to an airport, I have to wait, I have to go half an hour early because of this. I refuse to do this, right? I won't walk through the little hokey pokey machine. I'm not doing that. I suggest you don't either. You've got to go early. Now, I stand there like this. And first of all, they go, pat down. Woman wants a pat down. Pat down over here. Woman, pat down, pat down. Woman wants a pat down. I'm standing there in my little socks, People are walking by. They don't want to look at me. They're not making eye contact with me, right? No, they don't. I've been cut out of the herd. I don't exist anymore. Now, I try and look at them. They don't look at me. I'm bad. So I'm standing there. Okay, here comes the woman. So I'm like, okay, all right. So I know I'm guilty. I did something, right? So I stand there like this, and she's got her hands on me, and I look at her, and I go, so, is this all you can think of to do for a living? So is this all you could think of to do for the money? Have you asked yourself if there's anything you're not willing to do for the money? Have you asked yourself how far you'll go for them? Well, that keeps me there for an extra half hour. So that's the plan, right? Guess what, though? If you want to go around now, they make the lines longer and longer. If you want to avoid that line, I took this. I stole this from the airport. It says, why wait in line at the airport? Try Clear Free, 2 months. What does it cost? It's $179 a year. $179 a year to get your biometrics and your fingerprints. So you just look at the machine, put your fingers down, and you go through. Oh, I am so cool. I'm like a VP, man, VIP. I am just so cool. I just went right through. Right? You're going to ask for it. Biometrics. Talk about IBM. Who is doing this plan, right? Who's doing this plan? IBM. You know about IBM. Now, I'll tell you about IBM. IBM was guilty of trading with the enemy, of actually trading with the enemy during World War II. Yes, they made the punch cards, they made the computers, they made it possible for Hitler to track every single person that he controlled. Those numbers on the arms were not you're number 1, you're number 2, you're number 3. They were you are this race, you come from this area, you're going to this camp. This is what the numbers were. That system was designed for Hitler by IBM. IBM had a wholly owned subsidiary in Germany. IBM is doing biometrics right now, and they're doing the smart grid. IBM is completely tied in with this. Now, all totalitarian states share the same characteristics. And I'm telling you this because you need to know. Because this is what it looks like. I told you it doesn't come with flashing lights. This is what it looks like. All totalitarian states share the same characteristics, right? What? Total control of property and means of production. Total information. Surveillance. Is that a drone? Loss of free speech. Consensus, right? Loss of free speech and restricted movement. You don't need a private vehicle because you're going to be on that train line, whether it exists or not, going to, how about this, right? In California, high-speed rail, they're taking a lot of money for high-speed rail. Well, they haven't built it yet. In fact, it's getting out to 2035 or something, but they've decided to build one little piece of that high-speed rail from Fresno to Bakersfield. Well, why? It's because it's flat. But what is that? It's from nowhere to nowhere. With your tax dollars.
It goes to Los Auschwitz.
Yes, right. This land is flat, and so they say, well, we can build this. This is about, high-speed rail is designed to fail. It's about taking your tax dollars and sinking them. This is about collecting your money and sinking it. It's about public-private partnerships where there are a few cronies who benefit. So this is a totalitarian state. They also share the same philosophy, right? A shared philosophy of totalitarians. It's all for the common good. The individual is selfish, right? And we have the Spartan present. The Spartan present. You have to restrict, conserve. You're too fat. Obesity is going to be a crime, right? You're going to lose your kid if you have an obese kid. We're talking about restricting use, restricting ability, restricting water use, energy, food, creating scarcity, and creating pressure. This is part of totalitarianism. Also, the vision of the glorious future. Oh, it's going to be so great. It's never going to rain or snow, no matter where you live. You're going to be on your bike all the time. You'll be downstairs in the downstairs coffee shop drinking coffee because you're not going to have a job, so nobody's going to have to work. There goes the train. There it is. This is your life, okay? What else do they share in common? Terror. The war on terror is a war on you. This plan is about creating the threat of terrorism. And if there is no threat of terrorism, well, we'll just create a few terrorist groups to scare you so that we can justify surveilling, managing, manipulating, and controlling every aspect of your life. Terror is an integral part of a totalitarian state. Now, what are totalitarian states? Communism. What's the experience? Communism, fascism, and Nazism. It's all for the fatherland, all for the homeland. That's right. It's all for the common good. So who's doing it to you? You've got it right here, right here. City of Bellevue. Neighborhood forums at City Hall, sharing responsibility for the common good. Common good works. Vision for stewardship and communal responsibility. Who are the sponsors? The City of Bellevue and a dozen neighborhood associations. How about this one? You've got Margaret Pegler. She's on the Seattle City Council. She was for 10 years. She's also on the executive board of ICLEI. Now, she's on the Central Puget Sound Growth Management Hearing Board until 2016. Right? This is how they do it. Hillary France, she was the Bainbridge Island councilwoman who last October became the executive director of FutureWise. How about Kathy Lehman? She was recently elected councilperson in Bellingham. She was FutureWise's chapter director in Whatcom County for 4.5 years. This is what happens. These are public-private partnerships where they actually seed people into government who create these rules and regulations that you are restricted by. So you've got B of A doing it. Bank of America with the American Planning Association, with the Bar Association, the American Bar Association. You see that? Does that look great? Can't hardly wait to move into that. Removing roadblocks to sustainable development. This is from Bank of America, providing funding for this plan. On Common Ground, National Association of Realtors. Are you a realtor? You paying dues? This is smart growth. How great smart growth is right here, National Association of Realtors. You've got your neighborhood associations in Seattle. The Department of Neighborhoods had a guy running it, Jim Dyers. He's actually now heading up at the University of Chicago. He's or Northeastern University or Northwestern, whatever it is. He's heading up the Asset-Based Community Development Institute. Asset-based community development. That is when you are the asset. You are GPSed with your location, and all of your hopes, dreams, financial capability, everything about you is tied in with your location and your name, your identity. Asset-based community development. You are the asset. This is it. In Seattle, they didn't want, they had a Department of Neighborhoods, but they didn't want any messy, actual Department of Neighborhoods. They didn't want actual people who were heading up neighborhood associations. No, they hired consultants to run the neighborhood associations. They need community buy-in. That's what this is about. The universities. Here's one, Geology 300, Oregon State University, Sustainability for the Common Good. 3 credits. Community-oriented policing, fusion centers, code enforcement, the Lung Association, Walmart, your churches. If your pastor is giving you a sermon about sustainable development and social equity, you better go have a chat with your pastor. If you are volunteering, and I know you like to volunteer, you want to give to people, you want to give money and time, you need to research who these groups are that you're funding and that you're giving your time to, because you want to find out, put their group names in with ICLEI, with sustainable development, with smart growth, and find out who these people are that you're funding and supporting with your dollars, right? With your dollars and your time. These are communitarian plans. So you know what? I don't blame you if you're feeling overwhelmed, right? Because who isn't? We are all overwhelmed by this. This is an assault. This is an attack on us. This is a bloodless coup d'etat, and it's being implemented worldwide. But remember, awareness is the first step in the resistance. Educate yourselves. This is important. Awareness is the first step in the resistance. There is no silver bullet with this. There's nobody going to come along and save us. This is it. We are doing this. This is a worldwide, grassroots, nonpartisan movement. Worldwide, and you won't read about it in the mainstream press because that is owned by the mega corporations, and this is a corporatocracy. You won't see it, but I'm going all over the country. I will be traveling the world next year. This is happening all over the world. Resistance is growing. It's powerful. We are rising up. We are speaking out. This is a fight for the hearts and minds of the people. So, we the people. Okay, so what you want to do, you want to withdraw your financial and volunteer support. You want to know your enemy, so identify your enemy. You want to put out your flyers. We have flyers for you. We stopped a huge plan, a huge program in our town with a flyer like this. We put out 7,000 flyers. I have flyers here for you that are about Agenda 21, what it is. Another thing, you walk them around. You can make 100 flyers for $6. You get up early in the morning, you walk them around. If you live in an area that's rural and you can't walk them around, because let's say you're in the San Juans or something, here's something that the Kitsap Alliance of Property Owners put out. They put out they mailed it. They collected some money and they put it out and they said, hey, these people are taking with the shoreline buffers, they're taking your property rights. And they put out a flyer, it costs you about $6,000, $7,000. You can collect the money and do it. In Texas, a good friend of mine, who's the head of the 912 there in Dallas, or in Houston, she refused to have a smart meter put on her home. She had a gun on her. Thelma had a gun, and she said, we're not doing this. You're not coming on my house with this thing. Now, I'm not suggesting that you get a weapon, but I'm just saying to you, resist. Say no. Because you know what? The Nazis were made possible by people who went along. A lot of Germans loved it. Don't think they didn't. They loved it. They thought it was great. You're going to think this is a good thing. You may see some part of this plan that you think is real good, that you like, that resonates with you. You've got to stand strong because communitarianism infects every single one of you. And you have to be clear that even though you like the idea of whatever it is, and I'm not going to talk about it here, but you know I'm gay. So whatever it is that you may not like, remember, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, something else you want to do and you want to remember is that the left-right paradigm, breaking that left-right paradigm is the most powerful thing we can do. Go purple. We're not wearing our gang colors here, right? We're talking about America. Yes, there are things we're going to disagree about. Let's not talk about it, okay? Let's just work on what it is that we know is important, which is our freedom, our right to speak freely, our right to be free, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This terrifies those in power. Expose those public-private partnerships. Know that there are no heroes in this fight. Now, I did write a book. It's a great book. You definitely should get it because it's a quick read, it's short, and it's got all the information you need. And the fact is that people who are on the left need to recognize that they are being manipulated, that they are being used, that in fact the whole Democratic Party is being manipulated and managed and controlled, and that the entire world is being Delphied. And so is the Republican. We are all being manipulated because at the top, power has no party. This plan is a plan for one world government. Real socialism has nothing to do with everybody having something. We're talking about dictatorship. So this is it. You need to be active. You are the resistance. That's why you're here. You know it. You need to do something. You need to do whatever it is you can do. If you can't make flyers and walk them around, pay someone to do it. If you can't go out and make speeches, assist in financing those who are. If you can't write the books, help get the books out to people. You want to get the information to your political leaders. If they resist you, if they don't respond to you, you want to remove them. Choose someone on your regional board who is weak and recall that person. Use all of your energy to take that person out. Come together across the state and show that you can and focus on that one individual. I don't care who it is. You've got 72 people on that Puget Sound Regional Council. Pick someone and recall them. And show those elected officials that you have power, that you will work together and you will take them out. And if they think they're so smart and they say, okay, you're going after that person, we're going to just take them off the board, you stay on that person. Get that person out. You say, I don't care. We're going after, this person was on the regional board, we're removing them. We are going after the regional boards. They are unelected. They do not represent us. This is the first step to totalitarianism and one world government. Regional boards, unelected and unresponsive to you. Take them out. Support your elected officials who refuse to take the money. If they're refusing those federal dollars, you be there. If you're elected, you let your people know that you are about to refuse a federal grant in order to protect their sovereignty and ask them to come down and support you. We need to do that. I don't care where you are in the state. I don't care where you are. You go and support the people because they do this one property at a time. They take you out one business at a time. They take you out one town at a time. They take you out one city at a time. They take you out one state at a time. We need to work together. This is it. We are doing it. all across the nation, people are rising up. They are speaking out. They are joining together, and they are refusing this plan. And we are doing it together, and we will win this. We will prevail because we are the resistance, and we will win this. Thank you.